The emergency alarm screamed through Fort Bradbury's training facility as red lights bathed everything in an ominous glow. 23 military recruits stood frozen in the Tactical Operations Center, watching their evaluation exercise spiral into a real-world nightmare. What was supposed to be a routine hostage rescue simulation had just become terrifyingly real. Actual armed intruders had breached the base during the exercise, taking advantage of the lowered security protocols. Commander Rex Thornton's voice crackled over the intercom, tight with barely controlled panic. "This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. 6 armed hostiles have taken control of Building 7 with civilian contractors inside. Local SWAT is 30 minutes out. Military response team is pinned down at the north entrance." Among the recruits, Jessica Chen stood at the back of the group, her 5'5" frame nearly invisible behind the larger soldiers. She unconsciously touched her right shoulder where her tattoo sat hidden beneath her uniform, an intricate design of a black eagle clutching lightning bolts surrounded by Latin words. The other recruits had seen it once during physical training and immediately dismissed it as some trendy design she'd probably copied from Instagram. Marcus, the squad leader who'd been a football star before enlisting, had actually laughed and called it cute, saying she probably got it on spring break to look tough. Now, as chaos erupted around them, Jessica's fingers traced the tattoo's outline through her uniform, her breathing changing from panicked to something else entirely. Something controlled, measured, deadly calm. Jessica Chen was 26 years old, a quiet recruit who'd joined the military just 3 months ago through the standard enlistment program. Her records showed her as a former kindergarten teacher from suburban Seattle, who decided to serve her country after a bad breakup. She struggled with the physical requirements, always finished last in the runs, and seemed to flinch whenever the drill sergeants yelled. The others had written her off as someone who'd wash out within 6 months, just another civilian who'd watched too many military movies and thought she could play soldier. What they didn't know was that Jessica Chen's entire identity was a carefully crafted lie. 4 years ago, Jessica had been someone else entirely. She'd been Operative Chen, call sign Phantom, member of the most classified unit in American Special Operations, Task Force 88, known in whispered legends as the Ghost Eagles. For 3 years she'd operated in places that didn't exist on maps, completing missions that would never appear in any official record. The tattoo on her shoulder wasn't decoration. It was a mark earned in blood. Each element told a story. The eagle represented aerial infiltration mastery. The lightning bolts marked 5 confirmed high-value target eliminations, and the Latin phrase, mortis ex umbra, meant death from shadow. Only 47 people in American military history had earned the right to wear that mark. But her last mission had gone catastrophically wrong. Bad intelligence had led her team into an ambush in Syria. She'd survived, but the psychological toll and a direct order from the Pentagon had forced her into hiding. They'd created this new identity, ordered her to lay low, to become invisible, to forget she'd ever been one of America's deadliest weapons. The agreement was simple. Stay hidden for 5 years, let the enemies who'd put a price on her head believe she was dead, then disappear forever. She'd chosen to hide in plain sight, joining the regular military under an assumed identity, purposely underperforming to avoid attention. Until today. Today, the rules had just changed. Commander Thornton's voice echoed through the facility again. Building 7's security system shows 6 hostiles, armed with automatic weapons. They have 12 civilians. They're demanding transport and threatening execution in 15 minutes. Marcus immediately took charge of the recruits, his football quarterback instincts kicking in. All right, we fortify here and wait for the professionals. Nobody plays hero. But Jessica was already moving, her trained eyes analyzing the tactical displays. She could see what the others couldn't. The hostiles' formation was professional, Eastern European based on their movement patterns. These weren't random terrorists. They were mercenaries, probably here for something specific. "We can't wait," she said quietly, but her voice carried a strange authority that made heads turn. Marcus scoffed. "Sit down, Chen. This isn't kindergarten story time. Real soldiers are handling this." Jessica's jaw tightened. She watched the security monitors as one hostile moved to the civilian group. The body language was clear. They were selecting their first victim. Her hands instinctively moved into a tactical ready position, muscle memory from 1,000 missions taking over. "They're going to execute someone in 30 seconds, she said, reading the hostile's micro-movements. "Look at his stance. Weight shifted forward, weapon transitioning to single-target focus." "How could you possibly know?" Marcus started, but was cut off by the sound of gunfire from Building 7. On the monitor, one civilian fell. The room erupted in panic. Commander Thornton's voice came through again, desperate now. "All units. They've executed one hostage. SWAT is still 20 minutes out. God help us." Jessica closed her eyes for exactly 2 seconds. When she opened them, something had fundamentally changed. The frightened kindergarten teacher was gone. In her PP, lace stood something else, something that made the recruit next to her instinctively step back. Without a word, Jessica moved to the weapons locker that the training officer had left open in the chaos. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, assembling a tactical kit in under 15 seconds, movements so smooth they looked choreographed. She stripped off her outer uniform jacket, revealing her arms. The tattoo was now fully visible, and in the emergency lighting, the detail was unmistakable. This wasn't some tattoo parlor art. The precision, the scarring around it, showing it had been earned, not purchased. "Chen, what the hell are you?" Marcus began. Jessica turned to face the group, and her transformation was complete. Her posture, her eyes, the way she held the weapon, everything screamed elite operative. Building 7 has 3 entry points. The hostiles are positioned in a classic Prague formation. 2 on overwatch, 2 on the hostages, 2 floating. They'll execute another hostage in 6 minutes to maintain pressure. She pulled up the building schematics on the main screen with a few keystrokes. Passwords and access codes she shouldn't have known. There's a maintenance shaft here that leads to the 2nd floor. One operator could neutralize the overwatch positions, creating a 10-second window for entry teams here and here. The room was dead silent. Then, a recruit named Davis spoke up. "That tattoo, I've seen it before. My uncle was Delta Force. He told me about ghost eagles. Said they were myths, legends. Said only the absolute best of the best could even try out. And most died in training." Jessica was already moving toward the door. "Myths don't save hostages. You have 2 choices. Follow my lead exactly, or stay here and listen to 11 more executions." Marcus, his ego warring with the obvious expertise in front of him, made a decision. "You're insane if you think—" The intercom crackled. Commander Thornton's voice broken now. "2nd hostage down. Please, if anyone can do anything." Jessica looked at the recruits. "I need 3 volunteers. You'll follow my exact commands, no questions, no hesitation. I can't guarantee you'll survive, but I can guarantee those hostages won't if we do nothing." To everyone's surprise, Marcus stepped forward first. "I'm in." Davis joined him, then Thompson, the quiet recruit from Texas. Jessica nodded once, then her demeanor shifted into full command mode. "Marcus, you're Alpha. Davis, Bravo. Thompson, Charlie. Here's what's going to happen." She laid out a plan so detailed, so precise, that it was clear she'd done this dozens of times before. Every contingency covered, every angle calculated. The recruits listened in awe as she drew tactical diagrams from memory, predicted hostile responses, and assigned roles based on skills she somehow knew each recruit possessed, despite barely interacting with them. "Questions?" she asked. "Just one," Marcus said. "Who are you, really?" Jessica checked her weapon one final time. "Someone who should have stayed dead. Move out." They moved through the base like shadows. Jessica led them through routes that weren't on any official map, using security blind spots that shouldn't have existed. When they reached Building 7, she held up her hand, listening. Without any equipment, she somehow knew exactly where each hostile was positioned. She pointed to a maintenance hatch 12 feet up. Before anyone could ask how they'd reach it, Jessica took 3 steps back, ran at the wall, and executed a perfect wall run that would have made parkour experts jealous, catching the hatch edge and pulling herself up in one fluid motion. 60 seconds, she whispered down, then disappeared inside. What happened next would be reviewed in classified after-action reports for years. In exactly 53 seconds, Jessica neutralized both Overwatch positions without making a sound. The recruits, Water, Ching through tactical cameras Marcus had wisely grabbed, saw movements that didn't seem human. She moved like smoke, struck like lightning. When she gave the signal, the 3 recruits breached exactly as instructed. The remaining hostiles, suddenly without Overwatch, were caught completely off guard. Marcus and Davis handled their targets as Jessica had predicted they would, their movements guided by her precise planning. But it was Thompson who froze when his target grabbed a hostage as a human shield. The hostile pressed his weapon to the hostage's head. A young woman who worked in the base's administrative office. "Drop your weapons or she dies!" he screamed in accented English. Thompson's hands shook. This wasn't what they'd trained for. The hostile was backing toward an exit, dragging the terrified woman with him. 2 more hostiles, who'd been hidden in a supply closet Jessica hadn't been able to scout, emerged with weapons raised. The situation had just become impossible. "Stand down!" the lead hostile commanded. "We're leaving with the woman. Follow us and she dies." Marcus looked desperately for Jessica, but she'd vanished. The hostiles were almost at the exit. In 5 seconds, they'd be gone with a hostage, likely killing her once they were clear. Then, impossibly, Jessica's voice came from directly above the lead hostile. "Mortis ex umbra." The hostile's eyes went wide with recognition and fear. "No. You're dead. You died in Damascus. We confirmed it." Jessica dropped from the ceiling like a falling star. In mid-air, she threw 3 knives she'd somehow concealed, each one finding its mark in the weapons hands of the 3 hostiles, forcing them to drop their guns. She landed in a crouch, swept the lead hostile's legs, and in the same motion pulled the hostage clear. The lead hostile scrambled backward, genuine terror in his eyes. "Phantom! You're the just dude!" Phantom, this was a trap. You knew we were coming." Jessica stood slowly, and for the first time the recruits saw her true self. Not the kindergarten teacher, not even the special operator, but something more primal, more dangerous. "Victor Kozlov," she said calmly. "You led the ambush in Damascus, killed 3 of my team members." The hostile, Victor, pulled a hidden pistol, but Jessica was already moving. She disarmed him with a technique that broke his wrist, then pressed him against the wall with her forearm across his throat. "Those were my brothers you killed." "It was just business," Victor gasped. "We were hired." "By who?" Jessica's voice was ice. "I don't know. The handler only gave us coordinates and photos. Yours was marked priority. There's still a bounty. 10 million for proof of your death." Jessica turned to the recruits. "Secure the hostages. Get them medical attention." Then to Victor, "The bounty just expired. So did you and your team's freedom." 20 minutes later, the base was swarming with military police, SWAT, and federal agents. Commander Thornton arrived with a contingent of high-ranking officers, including General Patricia Hayes, commander of Special Operations Command. The moment General Hayes saw Jessica, she stopped dead in her tracks. "My God! Chen? Operative Chen? You're supposed to be—" "Dead. Yes, ma'am. That was the plan." General Hayes's eyes fell on the tattoo, now fully visible and unmistakable. "Ghost Eagles. Phantom. You're the one who completed Operation Thunderstrike. Alone. Against 40 hostiles." The recruits stood in stunned silence. Even Marcus, who doubted her from the beginning, looked like he'd seen a ghost. Commander Thornton stepped forward, his voice shaking. "General, she's been in my recruit class for 3 months. Her file says she's a kindergarten teacher." "Her file says what we needed it to say," General Hayes replied. "Operative Chen was one of the most decorated classified operators in American history. 37 successful missions, 0 failures until Damascus. We thought we'd lost her." Jessica stood at attention. "Permission to break cover was not given, General. I accept full responsibility." "You saved 12 lives today," General Hayes interrupted, "and captured Viktor Kozlov, who's been on our kill list for 3 years. She paused. "The Pentagon will want to debrief you. The program wants you back." Jessica shook her head. "Respectfully, General, I'm done being a ghost. If I serve in the light this time." General Hayes nodded slowly, understanding. "Then let me be the first to properly salute you, Lieutenant Colonel Chen." She raised her hand in a crisp salute, followed immediately by every officer present. Marcus approached slowly, his entire demeanor changed. "Ma'am, I owe you an apology. I said your tattoo was cute. I said you didn't belong here. I was wrong." "You were working with the information you had," Jessica replied simply. "Can I ask you something?" Davis interjected. "Why kindergarten teacher? Of all the covers, why that?" Jessica's expression softened for the first time. "Because for 3 years, I was death incarnate. I wanted to remember what it was like to create instead of destroy, to teach kids their ABCs instead of the other kind of lessons I'd learned." Thompson, still processing everything, asked, "Will you stay? Keep training with us?" Jessica looked at the group of recruits, no longer seeing them as beneath her, but as potential future operators. "The General's right. I have a debrief to attend. After that," she paused, "maybe it's time I taught what I know. Officially this time." 6 months later, Jessica stood before a new class of special operations candidates. Her uniform now properly displayed her rank and decorations, including the Medal of Honor she'd earned in Damascus, saving the 2 team members who did survive. The Ghost Eagle tattoo was no longer hidden, but worn proudly as a reminder of who she'd been and who she'd become. Marcus, Davis, and Thompson had all qualified for advanced special operations training with her recommendation. Marcus had become her best student, his ego replaced with genuine skill and humility. On the wall of her training facility, a plaque read, "In shadows we strike, in light we lead," the new motto she'd created for operators transitioning from classified to conventional forces. Commander Thornton, who'd become one of her strongest supporters, would often bring visitors to watch her train operators. "That's Lieutenant Colonel Jessica Chen," he'd say with pride. 3 months she pretended to be my worst recruit. Then 6 armed mercenaries attacked our base." He'd pause for effect. "They whispered that her tattoo was fake. 10 minutes later, I was frozen in respect, watching her save 12 lives with skills I'd only heard about in legends." And Jessica? She'd found her balance. No longer a ghost, no longer hiding, but something new. A bridge between the warriors who fought in shadows and those who served in the light. Her tattoo, once a hidden mark of a deadly past, had become a symbol of transformation, proof that even the deadliest weapons could choose to become teachers, protectors, and leaders. The kindergarten teacher who couldn't do a proper push-up had never really existed. But the woman who stood before these new recruits, warrior, teacher, survivor, leader, she was more real than any cover identity could ever be. Before you go, tell us in the comments, which country are you watching this video from? And don't forget to subscribe to Her Force Tales for more incredible stories, and hit like, share and comment to support the channel.